Okay. At one point, weren't you kind of along that same line of having to let the family know about it? Didn't you serve at one point as you'd actually go to the families and tell
Yeah.
them?
When I came back from my second tour, I was at New River, and one of my jobs was to, if anybody in that area, the Marines were killed, I would have to go out and talk to the families and give them the story on as much as I could find out about their husbands or fathers or uncles and whoever. And so I did that maybe not all that often, maybe 5 or 6 times. And that was a tough one, you know, when you're standing right there, and she's got 3 kids hanging on her, and she's crying her eyes out and going hysterical, and the kids are, I don't know what the hell's going on and what have you. And, you ain't coming back, honey. I'm sorry, but you.
But can you imagine a nicer guy being able to talk to these families?
Yeah.
I don't know, anybody could do that job more than a couple of times and survive mentally.
Well, most guys can't survive that more than a couple, 3 or 4 months. Cause,
Well, yeah, that's
you know,
emotional.
I can't see another tragedy unfold like that.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Now, I have to tell you about one of the gals that I went to talk to about that her husband was killed, and he was a good friend of mine. And she had 3 kids, and he was within a couple weeks of coming home. And so she had to make all those decisions of what to do. She was living on the base and had to move off base and all this stuff. So she had all these decisions to make. And one of my jobs was to help them through this, to see how them move or whatever, you know, to advise them on as much as I could on what to do. Well, this gal, I was getting calls from her practically every day, and helped her buy a car. I had bought a new Mercury station wagon, that green job. I don't know if you remember it or not.
Wood paneling on the side originally.
Yeah, and so when she went to buy a car, she wanted to buy exactly what I had. And pretty soon PJ said, "Hey, look,
Yeah.
this is getting too thick. You're going to have to get somebody else." I said, "Yeah, you're right."
Yep.
So I had to sign somebody else to help her.
Yeah. Okay, then let's see. They wanted you to go back for a 3rd tour.
Yeah, well, that's why I retired. One of the reasons I retired. After my second tour, I went to the Pentagon and was working for the Commandant of the Marine Corps and doing recruiting of pilots and several other things. But I got at the 20-year mark, and I was due for a 3rd tour in Vietnam, for one thing. And I'd been working with all these generals and politicians and stuff at D.C. for 3 years, and I saw really great Marines turn into generals, and then they were political hacks. You know, you're working for at the pleasure of the commandant. He tells you, you know, these congressmen write to the generals all the time, wanting all this stuff, you know. And they were sending messages over on Friday afternoon, demanding an answer by Monday morning at 0800, you know. And so, what the hell? This is going to take me a week to research all this crap you want, you know. But you don't tell them that. You do the best you can. You work all damn weekend. Turn it into them. You never hear a word out of it. I mean, it was sickening in my book. And then I saw these guys who were really great Marines get to be generals and turn into yes men. It was so political, and I didn't want to be a political hack for these stupid congressmen. So based on those 2 things, plus my dad wanted me to come back and take over his business, so I had a built-in business to go to come back to. So, and then you know, you guys were Oh, Mike was probably 17 or 18. You guys were 14, 15, 16 in that era. And the height of the drug culture, I mean, everybody in that school district, sister was smoking dope and God knows what else, doing crack and everything. And so I decided, well, I hadn't been a dad for 20 years. I better start being one now. Because I was gone half the time, you know. Half the time I was in the Marine Corps, I was overseas. So, that made me decide, well, start a new life and go from there.
So rather than go for a third tour in Vietnam, you spent the last 3 years.
Well, no, that was after 3 years at Pentagon. I was due for
So you
that.
worked at the Pentagon for 3 years.
Yeah.
Because you did work there, okay. And that's when you were in charge of recruiting? When you came?
Well, that's when I was recruiting Marine pilots. And I would go around the country to different universities and different organizations that had likely candidates and give a talk. And I designed a lot of the material that we use for recruiting posters and stuff like that.
So the
Me and my crew, I had a crew.
two of the
there.
slogans that they're still used today, the Marines were looking for a few good men and the few that proud the Marines.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that you put the stamp on and said,
Yeah.
those are going to be the slogans?
Then that picture I've got in my office with my hat and sword and wings and stuff, those were my hat, clothes, and
Those
sword
were
and
yours?
stuff that I laid out and took the picture of to inspire these guys.
And then the super gaggle, the origins of the super gaggle.
Oh, okay. Well,
That's
About to
interesting.
start a whole new story for that?
interesting story. Oh, yeah, you wanna?
And the video?
Let's start one over again.
Yeah, that's a